If you've been watching me live streaming, chances are you'll probably see me playing on my Pentium AST Advantage. Also, I've covered it in fairly great detail in a 3-part series ranging from fixing it up, showing it off, and eventually upgrading it. Since then, a couple of things I come up with that I'd like to address, so let's dive right in. This AST tower has given me a lot of joy lately. It's become a go-to machine when it comes to reliving that sweet spot of mid-90s PC gaming. Between revisiting a lot of classics I remember from my childhood and have a lot of nostalgia for, it's also helped me seek out some new experiences. In short, I love this chunk of beige goodness. So why am I revisiting this computer yet again? Well, this time it's not for an upgrade per se, but one thing I currently don't have is an easy way to read 5¼ floppy disk inside of my little retro network. That is not to say I don't have access to computers with a 5¼ floppy drive, but none that are rigged for use with my general network setup. In summary, a lot of my retro machines are networked together so they can share resources easily with each other. The advantage having a 5¼ drive inside of that network is that if one machine has it, then they all get it to simplify it. And this machine is the most suited to the task out of the ones I do have. Now on to fixing an actual problem. If you return to that descent capture and take a closer look at the dark portion at the top of the footage, you may notice something going on. Randomly, I've been seeing little white specks showing up, and this seems to predominantly be happening during DOS gameplay, perhaps tied to the resolution. It's not causing any deeper problem yet, but it's proven very annoying to me. To rule some possibilities out, I did try to connect the monitor without using the Voodoo bypass cable, just to get the shortest path possible. Even with a direct connection and a different monitor as well as a VGA cable, we see the exact same symptoms. It doesn't make any difference. So we can safely say it's due to the video card that's currently in here. So in short, those are the two things I want to deal with in this video, so let's go ahead and dig in. As for the parts we'll be working with today, first we have a fairly standard for the era S3 Trio 64 Plus video card, this one being made by Diamond. We have a total of 4 MB of memory on board, which should be plenty for our purposes. S3 really wasn't everything at this stage, so it's some of the easier to find cards, usually with really good compatibility. It should pair up nicely with our Voodoo accelerator card. So for the 5¼ floppy drive we're going to install, we have a Mitsumi D509V3. It supports up to 1.2 MB disk, which should give us a fairly broad compatibility in regards to what type of media we'll accept. Sadly, the color of the front plate doesn't quite match up with the rest of the case, but we'll have to work with what we have on hand, as these type of drives are getting more expensive and harder to find, it seems. Moving on to the installation, let's start by opening up the tower. If you watch my other videos on this machine, this is old news by now, but the case is held on with 3 screws on the back. Once those are removed, the case is the kind of flexing type that you have to kind of pop around the edges here to get it out. To gain access to the expansion slots, we also need to remove the bottom plate cover, so let's get that out of here. This case does have a pretty smart design with this bottom plate that allows you to access the expansion card slots without having to take the rest of the case apart. Of course, we need to in this case, but still, it's a nice option. With all that out of the way, we can clearly see our expansion cards. Looking into our expansion slot bay here, we can identify our old video card, which we'll remove and replace with our hopefully working Diamond S3 Trio 64V Plus. Quick and easy. In fact, it may be even quicker than saying Diamond S3 Trio 64V Plus. As for the floppy drive, since this is a mechanical device with moving parts, we're going to go ahead and give it a quick once over before we install it, just to reduce our risk of any problems popping up with it later. First, the front plate is held on with a couple of screws deep down here, which are a bit hard to see, but they are in there. Once those are extracted, the lever for the drive mechanism simply pops off, allowing us to remove the front plate. With that gone, next we turn our focus to the two screws toward the back that hold on the metal cover that's on top of the drive. Now that the cover is gone, we can see most of the drive mechanism exposed. Cover your shame, drive. A good sweep with an anti-static brush will get a lot of loose dust and dirt off the drive, and even though it's been a bit dusty considering the age and how long it's been sitting, it's actually not that bad. I've had this drive for some time, but I've never ended up using it, so it's been sitting in storage. This rail next to the stepper motor is what actually allows the drive head to align itself to the track it needs to read or write on the disk. It gets a quick shot of white lithium-based lubricant to make operation a little smoother. And yes, I realize my accuracy here leaves something to be desired, but I did hit it again off camera, but more carefully just to make sure it was covered. Next, some alcohol and a Q-tip is used to clean up the drive heads to remove any built-up gunk over time. This should also reduce the risk of any debris that's stuck on there scratching our discs. Before putting a drive back together, you should like to make sure the general disk insertion mechanism still works without getting stuck. After that, we'll simply reverse the process and get the cover as well as the front plate reinstalled. This case uses little rails that have to attach to any drive you want to install into any of the drive bays. Fortunately, I happen to have some spares, so let's get those installed first. Now, finally it's time to install the drive into the case. First off, we have to remove this blanking plate that covers the hole where our new drive will slide in. It does take a bit of convincing, but it finally comes out, and yes, that is permanently out at this point, of course. Following this, we can simply slide in the drive into the bay with a satisfying snap as it locks into place. Next, installing the actual cables is always a bit finicky in a cramped case, but I think we got there in the end. Eventually. Now with everything put back into place, we'll go ahead and slap the case back together and marvel at the finished product. While it'd be great to have a color matched drive, I still think the aesthetic works, as this was certainly a fairly common type of installation back in the day. Drives often were mismatched in color or design compared to the rest of your machine. You just kinda had to use what you had. With everything back together, let's boot it up and see if we run into any problems. The machine boots up as expected and video is being displayed, being a very good sign. Our first stop is of course the BIOS settings to make sure we get our new floppy drive enabled. With modern machines booting incredibly quickly, it's sometimes easy to forget how long it took to even get into settings on these older computers. Still, it's all part of the charm. Now that we're in the BIOS settings, we'll simply go ahead and enable the secondary floppy, save our settings, and be on our way. With the machine booted up, and we switch to the standard B drive letter for our new floppy drive, it seems to find it just fine. We of course also want to test with an actual disk, which is accessed no problem. We can do a director listing, and while our disk is empty, it runs without a hitch. I'd definitely call this a success. It's going well so far. Next, let's check out the Synth again for those little white specks and see if the new video card solved the issue we were seeing earlier. And sure enough, I can't seem to see any similar graphical issue. Even if we zoom in a bit, they are nowhere to be found in the same dark area. Another success. Remember earlier when I mentioned networking, right? I want to share this drive, so I'm going to go into the sharing settings in Windows 95, select the standard B drive name, give it full permission, hit OK, and we'll see a little hand appearing under the drive icon showing that it's now shared on the network. Perfect. So, first let's go ahead and create a file on here so we can see it from the other machine. I'm going to create a text document, name it something very special, and then write something in here. Something very profound, such as fart. Perfect. We'll save this document, and now we're going to go ahead and go to the other machine, which is the Windows 98 machine, and take a look. Switching over to Windows 98 here, we can go into Network Neighborhood and we'll actually see all our browsable devices. That includes our AST machine and our shared floppy drive. Opening that B drive up, we'll see here's our file. We're now accessing the floppy disk over the network and can see our very profound message again. I'm going to add something additional here. Again, I'm very profound and very smart. Save that. And next we'll go back to our Windows 95 machine to take a look. Back again here, we can open the floppy drive, take a look at the file, and see that it has been edited as expected. The nice part with this now is that all the machines on my network has access to this 525 drive. Since I only have one drive like this, having it shared out has obvious benefits to the rest of the machines on my network. So I have to say I'm quite pleased with the end result. Usually when I mess with machines like this, things don't always go according to plan, as you've probably seen before. It is actually getting closer and closer to what I consider perfect for the era. So thanks for following along on my journey with this AST Advantage 8100p, and thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, perhaps some of my other ones might interest you as well. I cover a variety of retro topics, usually focusing on older computers, but other things as well. You can also find me on Twitter to keep up with news about the channel, or just whatever random things I'm rambling about. If you want to catch me live, make sure to tune in to the channel on Thursdays at 8:45 Central. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.